So UFC Vegas 79, Dawson versus Green takes place this weekend. And I'm going to be going through the entire card, giving my prediction and breakdown of every matchup on the card, as well as just kind of breaking down my thoughts on the fights, and how I think each of the fights is going to go. So, just for these prelims here, we're gonna kind of skim through a few of them because look, they're not the most interesting fights. They're not worthwhile doing research for, but I still will give you my prediction. So the first fight is Montana De La Rosa versus JJ Aldrich. Um, I'll be picking Montana De La Rosa. Her only losses are to like actually really good fighters. Like she lost to Suarez in her last fight and made it to the second round, so she did better than Jessica Andrade. She's lost to Macy Barber. Like not bad losses, but JJ Aldrich coming off a win over literally the worst fighter in women's MMA. Um, and even then, she kind of struggled at moments and didn't look all the best. So got to take Montana De La Rosa. Probably going to win the decision. Um, Opening up the card probably means I get to sleep in just for a few fights. But yeah, that's that fight. I'll pick Montana decision. Aldrich just hasn't fought all the best of opposition, and even when she's fought like the lower level ones, it doesn't look the best. So Montana to win just kind of via women's MMA tactics, just clinching and being better. The next one, Aoriquileng versus Johhny Munhoz Jr. So this one is a really tough fight to predict. I've been going back and forth on this. Aoriquileng coming off a pretty bad loss, which has swayed me towards Munhoz Jr., which is going to be my official pick um, for this fight. He looked pretty good against Oliveira. No, sorry, against Daniel Santos. So mini Oliveira he is. And he looked actually not too bad in that fight. Like he did lose, obviously, but he had moments. Ao Chalang also. Neither of them have fought the best opponents, but um, I don't know. I just think Ao Chalang coming up from flyweight to bantamweight isn't going to be as dangerous. It isn't going to have the same kind of power that he has had in the past. That's got him some finisher wins. And I think Munoz is shown to be pretty durable. He took shots from Santos and survived to a decision. So I'll pick him to win, but a really close fight. The next one is Venessa Demopulous versus Kanako Murata. I'll be picking Murata in this fight. Demopulous is terrible at fighting, and Murata is actually pretty decent. So that's my justification. She'll probably win by decision because it's women's MMA. If she gets a finish, that'd be pretty cool. Um, Next fight, Nate Maness versus Matues Mendonca. I'll definitely be picking Mendonca in this fight. Nate Maness isn't good at fighting. Hasn't fought the best of guys. He lost to Umar Nurmagomedov dominantly. So that's not a bad look. But Mendonca's had some good performances. He did pretty well against Basharat earlier in the year. I think he fought since then. I'm not too sure though. But I'll be picking him to win this fight. Maybe by finish. Would be good to see. Um, the next fight, Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Diana Belbita. This one's another one, women's MMA, kind of a coin flip. But I'll be picking Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She's been around for longer. She's got that sort of veteran experience. She knows what she's doing. She's dealt with these kind of up and comers slash unranked fighters that just aren't on her level. She deals with them, wins the decision. She knows how to fight. She beat Venessa Demopulous, I'm pretty sure, in her last time out, and looked pretty solid. So I'll be picking her to win the 30-27 or 29-28 decision. Belbita's actually pretty solid. She looked good in her last fight, but I don't know how much I'm going to credit that to her, but her opponent just wasn't the best. So yeah. The next one, the prelim headliner, Ion Cutelaba versus Phillipe Lins. This one is like kind of a toss-up just because Ion Cutelaba has that X factor of just doing something stupid and either knocking someone out or getting knocked out. So I'll be picking Ion Cutelaba to win this fight. Phillipe Lins is like 38. He's got some decent wins recently, like OSP, like he's old though. Maxim Grisham's pretty old. Like he's not beating good guys. Ion Cutelaba's coming off a win over Tanner Bosa, which I actually think is pretty underrated. I don't think Bosa's that bad of a fighter. He lost to Johnny Walker, but Johnny Walker's like actually looking pretty good now. Other than that, he was at a stage in his career where he was fighting the Mugger Lives of the division, so I know he got smoked. Well, the first fight was a dumb stoppage, so they rebooked it. But I think he's actually decent. I think He's got a bit of a sus chin, and he does kind of run in at times. But I think he's going to be improving. I think he's going to be better, more athletic. He's younger than Philippe Lins, so I think he's going to win this fight. But moving on to the main card, Alexander Hernandez versus Bill Algeo. I'll be picking Bill Algeo in this fight. I think he's better, and I think Hernandez going down to featherweight again is not a good idea. We've seen it. He didn't look good at featherweight. He came up in his last fight and fought Jim Miller. And even then he didn't look the best. Like Jim Miller's kind of just a vet who just wins every second fight. Um, and he didn't even look that good against Jim Miller. Like he won the fight, but it was like there were rounds that were debatable for Miller. But then going back down to featherweight, where he's previously looked worse and hasn't had the same sort of speed or power that he does at lightweight, I think this isn't a good idea. And I think Bill Algeo's grappling is going to be too much for him. And I think he's going to win this fight probably by submission or maybe a TKO due to ground strikes. Could just be a decision though. Like there'll just be moments where it's pretty even, and then Bill Algeo kind of just takes his back and just steals the round with like a minute of back control. I can see that kind of thing happening. Um, but moving on, Drew Dober versus Rick Glenn. I'll be picking Drew Dober. This is a tough one though because obviously Ricky Glenn, we know he's not black, he's not melanated, and Drew Dober does tend to struggle to beat the opponents of his same complexion. So, um, but I'll still be picking him to win. I think Ricky Glenn is absolutely terrible. He looked awful in his last fight against Christos Giagos, who isn't all that good. He got finished. He looked slow. He looked stiff. Dober's athletic, Dober's powerful. Um, I have a worry though somehow that Ricky Glenn's gonna just somehow tap him at range or something like that. But Judo is so powerful. He KO'd Bobby Green, which is an amazing win. So yeah, I gotta pick Drew Dober, but you never know. If he somehow loses this, then it's only melanated fighters from now on for Dober. I don't care. Set him up to welterweight. He can fight Neil Magny. He'll beat him. He'll fight Jeff Neal. He could probably beat Leon Edwards. Like that's the motivation that Drew Dober possesses. Um, but I'll be picking him to win. I don't think Ricky Glenn's good at all. But moving off the card, Alex Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. Um, Another hard one to predict. This one's one I'm sort of on the fence on. I will go with Buckley though. I think he's just more dangerous and has more of an ability to finish the fight. Morono in his last fight did actually look really good. I picked him to win. I forget who he fought, but he looked pretty good. It was on the Rosenstrike versus Almeida card. Um, and he looked actually pretty solid. But Buckley, obviously the winner of Fialho, I don't take too much away from that because Fialho is not good at fighting. But um, ultimately he's dangerous. He's got power. We know he can KO people, and I think that's what this is going to come down to: just overall danger and who is um, going to be able to cause the more damage. And I think even in moments where Morono might be outstriking him technically, I think Buckley has that capability just to land a big shot um, and steal rounds or finish Morono. So I wouldn't be confident on a method of victory, but ultimately I'll probably be going with Buckley TKO. But yeah, that's my prediction for that fight. We move on to the co-main event. Joe Pyfer versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. I'll be picking Joe Pyfer. This is sort of a layup fight for him. Alhassan, pretty decent. He fought Claudio Heberia earlier in the year, and it was alright. Um, but Pyfer's really good. Pyfer is actually a good fighter in middleweight. He looks promising, and I do see him becoming ranked at some point. Like he's got losses in his career, but he beat up GM3 earlier in the year. And I know it's GM3. Like we kind of like he's the guy that does turn around. Like he beat Bruno Silva. Like he's the guy that beats the people that look promising, and he just does that. But Pyfer beat him and TKO'd him. So he's got power, he's good, got solid grappling. I think he's just going to beat Abdul, who's like, bit like, I don't know, he's got power, obviously, you can see by looking at him, but he's not all that quick. He doesn't always find the right shots. So I'll be picking Pyfer to win, probably a decision, but he definitely could finish Abdul Razak Al Hassan. But we move on to the main event. Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. This one's a pretty easy one. I'll be picking Grant Dawson to win by finish in the first couple of rounds. Bobby Green's got a weakness. When people take his back, he turns over and he ends up in the full kind of back mount. And then he just gets TKO'd, like against Makachev. And I see Grant Dawson doing a similar thing. Like I see Dawson getting him down pretty easily, looking to take the back, and then Bobby Green just shits himself and just turns over and gives up mount, and then just gets TKO'd with ground strikes in the first two rounds. I can see that happening. Um, that's how I see it going. I think Dawson's going to win. Buckley, not Buckley. Bobby Green isn't all that good. He fought Tony, but I don't know. Like even in that one, he didn't look that good. Against Jared Gordon, he didn't look all that good. Like he got finished by a Dober. So don't know how much I can trust Bobby Green. Obviously, he's slicker on the feet than Dawson, so he could, if he somehow stuffs the takedowns, he definitely can win. But ultimately, I'm not going to trust him. I'm not going to say if he stuffs the takedowns, he beats him on the feet, because I do see Dawson taking him down pretty comfortably, and getting the TKO or submission. Rear naked choke slash TKO due to ground strikes is my official call. Um, those are the predictions. Just a quick one for this video. Not too many fights on this card. I think there's 11 of them, and a few of them that just didn't really have a lot to talk about. But those are my predictions. I'm picking Grant Dawson, I'm picking a Pyfer, I'm picking Buckley, I'm picking Dober, picking Algeo, Cutelaba, Kowalkiewicz, Mendonca, uh, uh, Murata, Munhoz, and Demopulous. See you guys.